Imagine discovering a machine so advanced that it seemed to belong to the wrong century, not by decades, by more than 1,000 years. In 1900, Greek sponge divers pulled a corroded lump of bronze from an ancient shipwreck near a tiny island in the Mediterranean. Nobody expected much from it. Then someone saw gears inside, and those gears became one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. The island was Antikythera, a small rocky place between Crete and the Peloponnese. The divers had not gone there looking for history. They were sponge divers, men who risked their lives descending into deep water in heavy suits, searching the seabed for a living. According to the story, a storm forced their boat to take shelter near the island. When the weather calmed, they went down expecting sponges. Instead, they found statues, bronze bodies, marble figures, horses, human forms scattered across the seabed. At first, it must have looked less like a shipwreck and more like an underwater graveyard. The divers had stumbled onto an ancient cargo ship, lost beneath the sea for nearly 2,000 years. It had carried treasures from the Hellenistic world: bronze statues, marble sculptures, ceramics, glassware, coins, and luxury objects. These were the discoveries that drew attention first. They were beautiful. They were dramatic. They looked like history. But the most important object on that ship did not look important at all. It was a damaged lump of bronze and wood, fused together by salt water, corrosion, and time. Compared with the statues, it was almost ugly. A fragment, a ruin, something easy to ignore. But hidden inside that lump was a secret that would take generations to understand. After the objects were brought to Athens, the corroded mass began to break apart. Inside, researchers saw something that should not have been there. A gear, then another, then more. Not decoration, not a simple wheel, not a random piece of ship equipment. Precision-cut bronze gears, a machine. More than 30 gears are known from the surviving fragments. Their details are measured in millimeters. The teeth were cut by hand, arranged to turn together, and designed to transfer motion through a system far more complex than anyone expected from a lump of ancient bronze. That was the moment the discovery changed from treasure to mystery. Historians simply did not have an easy place for a machine like this. Ancient Greece was famous for philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, architecture, and engineering. But a compact device filled with interlocking gears designed to calculate the movements of the heavens looked centuries ahead of its time. It felt closer to a medieval clock or a Renaissance scientific instrument, not something from the ancient Mediterranean. And yet there it was. The object is now known as the Antikythera Mechanism. It is often called the world's oldest known analog computer, but that phrase can be misleading if we imagine screens, circuits, or electricity. This machine had none of those things. It was powered by hand. It was built from bronze. It probably sat inside a wooden case, and when someone turned a handle, the gears inside moved pointers across dials, translating human motion into astronomical calculation. That alone would be astonishing. But the real shock came slowly. For decades, the mechanism remained partly locked inside its own corrosion. Scholars could see gears, but not the full system. They could see fragments, but not the whole machine. The object had survived, but it had survived as a puzzle, and the puzzle resisted them. Then modern imaging changed the story. X-ray scanning and advanced surface imaging allowed researchers to look inside the fragments without destroying them. Hidden structures appeared. Gear trains became clearer. Inscriptions that had been unreadable for nearly 2,000 years began to emerge. The machine started to speak. The first surprise was the moon. The mechanism did not simply mark days like a calendar on a wall. It followed lunar cycles. A user could turn a handle, and the machine would move the moon through time. Imagine holding it in your hands. A wooden box, perhaps no larger than a thick book. Turn the handle once. The moon advances. Turn it again. The lunar month shifts. This was not just a display. It was a moving model of time. For an ancient observer, the moon was not decorative. It shaped months, festivals, religious life, travel, and public order. To track it was to bring rhythm to the world. But then researchers discovered something stranger. The mechanism did not only follow the moon, it helped solve one of the oldest problems in timekeeping. The moon gives months, the sun gives seasons, but lunar months and solar years do not fit neatly together. That mismatch haunted ancient calendars. If a society followed only the moon, the calendar could drift away from the seasons. Festivals, harvests, and civic dates could slowly slip out of place. The Antikythera Mechanism answered that problem with a cycle: 19 solar years, 235 lunar months. This was the Metonic cycle, a mathematical way to bring lunar and solar time into alignment. Inside the mechanism, that idea was not written only as theory. It was built into motion. A hand turned, a gear moved, a cycle of the heavens passed through bronze. And then came the next surprise. The machine could point toward eclipses. This changed the emotional scale of the object. The moon was familiar. Calendars were practical, but eclipses were different. An eclipse could darken the sun or transform the moon. To ancient people, it was one of the most dramatic events in the sky. It could inspire fear, wonder, interpretation, and debate. The Antikythera Mechanism did not make eclipses magical. It made them calculable. On the back of the device was a dial linked to the Saros cycle, a period of 223 lunar months. Ancient astronomers understood that this cycle was connected to eclipse patterns. The mechanism used it to mark times when solar or lunar eclipses were possible. Picture the scene. Someone turns the handle. The moon moves, the calendar shifts, and somewhere on the dial, an eclipse appears, not in the sky above them, but years in the future. 2,000 years ago. That is the part that still feels almost impossible. Not because it was supernatural, because it was human, and because it shows a level of mechanical imagination we rarely associate with the ancient world. Then, researchers noticed another detail. The machine was not only about the sky, it was also about human life. One display tracked the 4-year cycle of major Pan-Hellenic Games, including the Olympic Games. At first, that might sound like a small feature, almost an extra, but it tells us something important. The people who built and used this device did not separate astronomy from culture the way we often do today. The sky, the calendar, religious festivals, public events, athletic competitions, and civic identity all belong to the same system of time. The mechanism did more than model the heavens. It connected the heavens to the world people lived in. A machine that could follow the moon could also remind its user when great games would return. A machine that could point toward eclipses could also place human ceremonies inside cosmic rhythm. That made it more than a scientific instrument. It was a bridge between the sky and civilization. And then there was the front of the machine. This is where the investigation becomes more difficult. The front is less complete. Much of it is missing. Scholars have proposed different reconstructions, and not every detail is settled. But the surviving inscriptions suggest that the front display represented the Greek cosmos. It likely included the sun, the moon, and the 5 planets known in antiquity: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. That does not mean the mystery is solved. It means the ambition was enormous. The maker was not simply building a calendar. He was trying to place the universe inside a box. And that raises the question that has followed the mechanism for more than a century. Who could have built it? Historians have spent decades trying to answer that question. The search leads into the great centers of Hellenistic science, where astronomy, mathematics, and engineering were not separate worlds. They overlapped. Scholars observed the sky. Mathematicians described its patterns. Craftsmen found ways to turn those patterns into physical devices. One possible trail leads to Rhodes, an island associated with astronomy and mechanical knowledge in the ancient world. Another leads toward the intellectual shadow of Archimedes, the legendary Greek mathematician and engineer whose reputation for mechanical genius survived long after his death. There are ancient literary references to complex astronomical devices. There were men in the Greek world who understood mathematics deeply enough to imagine such machines. There were workshops capable of producing delicate bronze work. So the Antikythera Mechanism did not come from nowhere. But it did come from a world we still do not fully see. No maker's signature survives. No workshop label survives. No complete instruction manual has been found. The creator remains unknown. That absence matters. If the maker had signed it, the story might become the story of one genius. But without a name, the machine points to something larger: a tradition, a workshop, a community of knowledge, or a lost chain of teachers and craftsmen. The mechanism is not just evidence of one brilliant person. It may be evidence of a lost technological world. And that is where the story becomes bigger than one artifact. Because no comparable geared device is known to survive from antiquity. That silence is unsettling. If one machine like this existed, was it unique? Was it a masterpiece made for a wealthy owner? Was it a teaching device? A luxury scientific instrument? A demonstration of power and knowledge? Or was it one example from a larger tradition of mechanical astronomy that has almost completely disappeared? We do not know. But the absence of other examples does not mean the knowledge never existed. It means the evidence did not survive. Bronze was valuable. Wood decayed. Ships sank. Libraries burned. Wars erased cities. Workshops closed. Teachers died without passing on their methods. Knowledge does not always disappear in a single catastrophe. Sometimes it fades quietly, one broken link at a time. A lost manuscript. A dead master. A destroyed workshop. A machine melted down for metal. A tradition no longer taught. That may be the real story behind the Antikythera Mechanism. Not a story of aliens, not a story of magic, not a story of a fantasy civilization with impossible powers. A human story. A story about how knowledge can rise to extraordinary heights and still be lost. For centuries, the Antikythera Mechanism lay beneath the sea. No one turned its handle. No one read its dials. No one watched its tiny cosmos move. The shipwreck that ended its journey became the reason it survived. Had the ship reached its destination, the machine might have been used, damaged, repaired, discarded, or melted down for bronze. It might have vanished without a trace. Instead, it sank, and the sea kept it. Not safely, not gently, but long enough. When divers found it in 1900, they did not just recover a piece of metal. They recovered a question. What did we underestimate about the ancient world? That question is what makes the mechanism so powerful. We underestimated ancient engineers. We underestimated their precision. We underestimated their ability to combine mathematics, astronomy, craftsmanship, and imagination. We underestimated how fragile advanced knowledge can be. Today, the surviving pieces are kept in Athens. They no longer turn. The bronze is dark, brittle, and scarred by centuries underwater. But the idea inside them still moves. It moves every time a scan reveals another clue, every time an inscription is read, every time a reconstruction shows how the ancient sky may have turned inside that small wooden case. The Antikythera Mechanism survived because a ship sank. That is the irony. The disaster that destroyed its journey preserved its message. Somewhere beneath the Mediterranean, another ship may still be waiting, another machine, another invention, another idea that could change what we think we know about history. Because perhaps the greatest mystery is not the Antikythera Mechanism itself. Perhaps it is how many discoveries we have simply never found, waiting beneath the water, beneath the sand, beneath the next archaeological dig, waiting to remind us that the ancient world was never as simple as we imagined. and that history may still be hiding its most astonishing machines. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy stories where history, science, and mystery meet, subscribe for more journeys into the lost technologies of the ancient world.